Honorable Foreign Minister of Denmark, Mr. Jeppe Kofod, my co-host, CEO of Danske Industries, Lars Sørensen, my good friend, the Danish ambassador to India, Freddie Swain, who is in New Delhi, distinguished speakers from India, Mr. Amitabh Kant, CEO of Niti Aayog, Mr. Deepak Bagla, CEO of Invest India, and CEOs of leading Indian and Danish companies. It gives me great satisfaction that we have collected such an impressive number of distinguished speakers, both from India and Denmark today, to discuss the building of a green strategic partnership. This is certainly the most high-profile business seminar organized by Embassy of India with Danish partners in many years. Although the COVID-19 pandemic has limited the opportunity for physical interaction, it has thrown open the possibility for much wider participation online. Perhaps this is the path we might have to follow over the next few months to sustain the increased momentum in bilateral relations. Denmark and India share friendly ties, and Denmark has always been a close development partner of India. In the 1960s, Denmark's contribution to our white revolution by facilitating crossbreeds in cattle led to an exponential increase in India's milk production. Today, India is the largest producer of milk in the world, and farmers across the country even today fondly recall the contribution made by Denmark. Denmark also helped to facilitate the growth of our wind energy sector in the 1990s and in preparing an atlas for onshore wind, as well as mapping sites for developing offshore wind. During my numerous meetings, many Danes have commented that Denmark is a small country. But in my view, Denmark is a global leader in several niche areas which are of immense relevance to India. It has world-class companies which have a formidable reputation in ports and shipping, renewable energy, especially wind, pharmaceuticals, agricultural products like dairy, meat and fish, food processing, and the clean tech sector. Like other Scandinavian countries, it is some of the smartest cities in the world. Many Danish companies have useful technology for reducing water usage, waste treatment, waste-to-energy plants, sewage treatment plants, minimizing air pollution, etc. Denmark is also known for innovation and startups and for creating an environment to encourage cutting-edge research in science and technology in its renowned universities. It is also a leader in artificial intelligence, robotics, and microelectronics. Although there was a brief gap in our bilateral relations, we have made up for lost time in the last few years. It has been India's privilege to have hosted the Foreign Minister of Denmark thrice in the last 2.5 years. Our Prime Ministers have met twice, once during the first ever Nordic Summit in Stockholm in April 2018, and next during the visit of your former Prime Minister Lars Løkke Rasmussen to India in January 2019 for Vibrant Gujarat. The meetings were held in a positive and friendly atmosphere, with leaders of both countries agreeing that Denmark and India should work together in fighting climate change, ensuring sustainable development and meeting SDG goals. A strong framework has now been put in place to deepen and expand our government-to-government cooperation, as well as encourage closer ties between business entities, academics, and scientists. You will be happy to know that in the last 2 years, India and Denmark have signed 13 important MOUs and agreements between the governments to strengthen cooperation. A comprehensive dialogue between various ministries has made vigorous progress, with 8 joint working groups holding 15 meetings in the last 2 years. We are now setting up 2 more joint working groups, a joint working group on health and a joint working group on digitization. In fact, as I speak, the joint working group on digitization is to meet tomorrow, and the second meeting of the joint working group on urban development is to meet day after tomorrow. If there was a Guinness Book of World Records in diplomacy, India and Denmark would surely win the first prize. The intense dialogue has continued during the pandemic. Lars spoke about the joint commission meeting between the External Affairs Minister and the Danish Foreign Minister. In fact, after the meeting, our External Affairs Minister, Dr. Jaishankar, tweeted, "I did my first virtual joint commission today. Couldn't be with a better counterpart, Foreign Minister Jeppe Kofod." Our Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi also had a warm and cordial teleconversation on 14th May with your Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen, and both agreed to strengthen cooperation with the aim of creating a green strategic partnership. Our Prime Minister has suggested that areas like green energy, climate resilience, and medical research offer great opportunities to bring together Danish and Indian strengths. In earlier meetings, our Honorable Prime Minister has identified wind energy as a sector for strategic cooperation, as well as food processing, fisheries, and waste management as areas which hold great scope for cooperation. Our Honorable Prime Minister has given a mantra or a directive for the future of our relations. He said that Denmark has the skills while India has the scale. The friendly, sincere, and open people of Denmark have already left a deep impression on our policymakers. We would like to accelerate cooperation with Denmark, and I'm confident that Danish companies, policymakers, and people will contribute significantly towards establishing a green strategic partnership between India and Denmark. Danish companies have been quite active in India, but I think they have been participating in the Indian water market in an individual or a company-specific manner. So Grundfos is active, and Mads mentioned the solar-powered pumps. I believe they've sold about more than 40,000 solar-powered pumps. In addition to their other activities, Kamstrup has sold some smart meters. The Danish Water Forum, Danish Hydrological Institute has about 50 professionals. They have done a lot of work in India in terms of water resources management, watershed management, flood management, etc. What I would recommend is that if a water alliance or a consortium can be formed by Danish companies, and then they can approach, say, the cities in India or districts and offer an integrated solution. Because you have companies which are active in the consulting role. There are some smaller companies which are also active. There are companies like Grundfos. There is AVK, which makes valves and pipes, which has 3 factories in India. So I think India certainly needs Danish expertise, Danish technology in our ambitious plan to provide clean water to our population and to reduce water leakage. My recommendation would be to form some kind of a consortium water alliance and then approach the authorities, because water ultimately, a lot of the decision making lies within the domain of the government. So we are working together with the Danish embassy and stakeholders in establishing this kind of a water alliance. In my experience, I have found that the large Danish companies are already present in India. In fact, most of them have expanded their manufacturing facilities in the last 5 to 6 years under the Make in India program. They are quietly but steadily expanding their market presence in India. What I find most interesting is that many of them are exporting out of India. So India is not only an export hub, but also a center for developing new products and services. What we would like to see from the Indian embassy is to have more of the medium-sized and the small companies looking at the Indian market more actively. I think it is important to find a good partner in India or to form some kind of a cluster or an alliance to be able to facilitate entry into the Indian market. The Indian market is not as complicated as you think it might be. All it does is it requires a little bit of perseverance. All of us speak English. We are all open and transparent, like the Danish people. We are also very friendly, very hospitable. There's a lot in common between India and Denmark. Don't underestimate what Denmark has to offer. In my view, there are only about 12 to 15 countries in the world which can offer cutting-edge technology and best practices, and Denmark is certainly one of them. We've already heard today a number of successful examples of what Danish technology and best practices can do, whether it's in the dairy sector, whether it's the wind energy sector, or when the Danfoss CEO gave the example of being able to help increase the shelf life of bananas in India. So there's a lot which can be achieved. I would like to mention 2 or 3 examples. FOSS itself has a technology transfer agreement with Indian companies to manufacture some of their components. In the healthcare sector, we have Novo Nordisk, which makes which has a 60% share of India's insulin market, and again, it's a joint venture with an Indian company. In recent times, we've had, in the last 2 years, we've seen some very successful examples. I would like to mention some of them. These are in very niche areas and have received a lot of attention from the senior levels of the government. One is a project to convert paddy waste into energy. As you might have heard, North India tends to have a lot of air pollution in the winter. The main reason for this is that the paddy waste is being burnt. There are many reasons for this, but Denmark is a leader in biomass to energy, and some Danish companies have been transferring this technology to India. 2 units have already come up in Punjab, and 2 more are being built in Haryana. We also have some Danish companies which are active in cleaning of rivers, and they have actually finished a very successful example is the Barapulla drain in Delhi, where about 1,000 tons of floating debris has already been trapped in the last 1 year, and this is now being recycled into a kind of biofertilizer. So these are examples where Denmark, Danish companies and technology can be utilized. And similarly, on the Indian side, there is a lot of synergy with about 30,000 Indian IT professionals supporting Danish companies, and they have worked very well through the pandemic, where there has been no disruption. So let me conclude by thanking all of you for joining in, and I do hope that both Danish companies and Indian companies will continue the search for tie-ups and collaborations to move forward in the process of establishing a green strategic partnership.